Baruch here, and it's time for the shir from Aryeh Kaplan, the great physicist who became great rabbi. Now, you have to understand that at certain levels of Kabbalah, physics, physicists are very interested in the ideas of Kabbalah. They don't have a problem listening to the ideas there because they're always thinking about astral connections. So here we have Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, former physicist, but he's boiled down to the basic nuts and bolts of trying to give us some idea of what Jews believe. Now, I don't think that everybody agrees with this. As in other words, it's like not set in stone, but it is set. That is, there are 13 principles of Jewish belief. Ani Ma'amin means I believe. So, but there are also other principles and other statements and other ways of looking at things. But this is something really fantastic, and Rabbi Kaplan put himself to it. He said, "This is where ani mamim, I believe, b'muna shalema, with complete faith, shekal divrei neviim emes, that all of the words of the prophets are true." Now, the letter that's behind this is the Hebrew letter Vav, which also is gematria 6. And this is a letter that you could do a lot with, but that's not the purpose here. So again, Rabbi Kaplan translates this: "I believe with perfect faith that all the words of the prophets are true." Now, in the song Yigdal, he says he has granted the bounty of his prophecy to the men of his choice and glory, meaning that prophecy is something that is achieved by special people. Commentary on the Mishnah: the sixth principle concerns prophecy. We must realize that there exist human beings who have such lofty qualities and achieve such great perfection that their souls become prepared to receive pure spiritual wisdom. Their mind's intellect can then become bound up with the creative mind. Now we're talking over here, remember that we're learning also Rabbi Memran at the same time, and Rabbi Memran has been a student of Aryeh Kaplan and receive an inspired emanation from it. The human intellect, again, can then become bound up with the creative mind and receive an inspired emanation from the creative mind. This is prophecy. Those people who achieve it are the prophets. This is the concept of prophecy. Full explanation would require a lengthy discussion, but we do not intend here to cite proof texts for every principle or explain how prophecy is attained. In passing, however, I will remind you that many verses in the Torah testify to the prophecy of many different prophets. Now, this code from the Yesodei Torah, it's called the Foundations of the Torah, and this is the Yad Hazaka, and we'll go on. It is the foundation of our faith to know that God grants prophecy to man. Now, the question is, what exactly is prophecy? He already gave us one definition, and that is what Rabbi Memran is talking about, which is yichud, or devekus, with eternity. Some people can achieve that. So such prophecy can only be attained by a person who has very great intelligence. He must have strong character and not be overcome by his impulses in any way. He must also have constant control over his emotions and have an outlook that is both very broad and very firm. A person having all these qualities can then delve into the spiritual. He can advance in these deep, subtle concepts, gaining a firm understanding and perception of them. At the same time, he must also sanctify himself and separate himself from the ways of the common people who grope in the darkness of the times. He must achieve a constant diligence in not even thinking of non-essentials or considering the vanities and intrigues of the times. He must work upon himself until his mind is constantly clear and directed on high. Now you see that this is a foundation that as we go to the shir after this, which will be Rabbi Mimran and mystical meditation, that you could see some of the same ideas presented here. And trust me that in the Sefer Yetzirah, it's a translation by Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, what we're reading here, he actually gets into a lot of this. So let's go on. He must bind his intellect to the throne of glory, striving to comprehend the purity and holiness of the spiritual beings. He must furthermore contemplate the wisdom of God in everything and understand its significance, whether it be the highest spiritual entity or the lowest thing on earth, must be able to look beyond what Rabbi Memron calls the ego mind. One who does this immediately becomes worthy of divine inspiration. If you could reach that level, then, as Rabbi Memron is saying, that learn how to see yourself and see your thinking. When one attains the spirit of inspiration, his soul becomes bound up in the level of the angels, and he becomes a different individual completely. He can now understand things with a knowledge completely different than anything he ever had previously. The level that he has attained is far above that of other men who can merely use their intellect. This is the meaning of what the prophet Samuel told King Saul. The Spirit of God will descend upon you, and you shall prophesy with them, and you shall be transformed into a different man. You can imagine that if your mind was opened enough that you actually made really conscious contact with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, that makes you a different person. There are many levels of prophecy. Just as one person may have greater intelligence than another, so one prophet can be greater in prophecy than another. All prophets, however, have one thing in common. They all see their prophecy only in a dream or vision at night, or else during the day while in a trance. This is what the Torah means when it says, this is a quote from Numbers, if there be a prophet among you, then I, God, will make myself known to him in a vision. Now, let me see if I got to get this down here a little bit. So he said, then I, God, will make myself known to him in a vision. I will speak to him in a dream. Prophecy is also a very traumatic experience. The prophet's limbs tremble, his body becomes faint, and he loses control of his thoughts. All that remains in his consciousness is a clear understanding of what he is experiencing. We thus find in the case of Avraham Avinu, Avraham fell into a trance, and a great dark dread fell upon him. Similarly, the Neo describes his vision, saying, if I saw this great vision, and I became powerless, my appearance was destroyed, and my strength deserted me. I heard the sound of his words, and I fell on the ground in a trance. When a prophet is given a message, it is given in the form of an allegory. Now, that's interesting. The interpretation of the allegory, however, is immediately implanted in his mind, and he knows its meaning. Thus, for example, Jacob saw a ladder with angels going up and down on it. This was an allegory. It was a story for the empires that would subjugate his people. The same was true of other prophets. Ezekiel saw a vision of living creatures. Jeremiah saw a boiling pot and an almond tree rod. Ezekiel saw a scroll, and Zechariah a measure. In these instances, the prophet divulged both the allegory and its interpretation. In some cases, only the interpretation was revealed. Other times, only the allegory was recorded, and this is true of some of the prophecies of Ezekiel and Zechariah. All the prophets, however, only prophesied by means of allegories and metaphors. A little bit more. A prophet cannot prophesy at will. He must concentrate. He must seclude himself in a good, joyous mood. Now, this sounds like Brother Chasidus, where he talks about his bodiness. For one cannot attain prophecy when he is depressed or languid, but only when he is joyous. The prophets would therefore have people play music for them when they were seeking prophecy. So that's interesting. We find in Shmuel a band of prophets coming from a high place, led by harp, drum, flute, and lyre, and they were seeking prophecy. This is That is, they were seeking to be worthy of a prophetic vision. That's the share for today. We're going to go on. You could see that Rabbi Kaplan can run deep, and we're going to run deeper with him. This is Baruch Fleischman.